Good evening. Welcome to Curmudgeon number 99. Oh,
let's get closer.
Oh, yeah. Well, everybody knows we're good buddies. Tonight I have Jim Wampler with me, and we're going to start off talking about Gamehole, and then I got a bunch of stuff to talk about, and then we'll probably talk about some other stuff as it comes up. As you can see, I've laid on extra light tonight so that Jim doesn't completely fade into the darkness. I like doing that. Jim doesn't.
I'm pretty translucent anyway.
So we're going to start with Gamehole. Take it. We just got back.
Oh, we're reviewing Gamehole Con.
Yes, we're going to do that first.
Alex Kamer and his whole team took a convention that already ran like a Swiss watch and somehow made it run better and bigger and better. The Halloween thing that they did with the kids was awesome. All the little... Literally, there was a little Ewok. I was going to say all the little Ewoks.
Yeah, little tiny
around,
ones.
you dressed up as Hagar the Horrible on your scooter, giving out candy. A bunch of other people.
The best time I had there, standing out in the hall, the mob in full force. I was next to a lady who was dressed in a really good-looking bird suit, good head, feathers, the whole thing, and she did a trilling call that was very realistic, and she caught the attention of a little boy, and he puffed up his chest like a pigeon. He started making what he thought were bird noises back, and she'd make him. And that went on for 90 seconds. I was just in stitches. You know that boy's going to remember the time that he talked to the bird on Halloween. It was astonishing. So many kids turned out. It had snowed the night before, so we were dry. I went through 22 Costco dollars worth of candy in 35 minutes. That's how many we had. Amazing time.
Oh, I even wore my Gamehole VII shirt. Yeah, all the big 3 OSR cons, Scary Con, North Texas Con, Gamehole Con, they all have their areas they do the best. But Gamehole Con is the smoothest operation ever. Yep. And I know this for a fact because I was outside smoking with a bunch of people, and Alex was out there, and his thinking was people want him to run games at the con, but he's in charge of the team. He's in charge of running the con. He didn't feel like he could do that. And this year he was outside going, it ran so smooth. I can do that next year. I'm running games.
That's hitting the pinnacle of efficiency, because that's always been the drag when I've had to help run games. You never get to play or run cons. You never get to play. You just get to organize and make people unhappy. It seems like more often than not.
Oh, and Total Con. It's the sweetest con.
It is. We're going there in February. It's another amazing event in Boston in February, and we'll be there. Gamehole, part of what made it so astonishing for the kids was they had a true dungeon, live dungeon, and 3 reenactor groups that are really professional quality makeup, outfits, and everything. So you got to figure those little kids were just walking around with their mouths open. It was pretty amazing.
I mean, future potential attendees, if you've been on the fence about going to Gamehole Con, of course, there's, old school D&D and, my little area, Dungeon Crawl Classics, Mutant Crawl Classics, there's lots of that, but there's a whole room of Adventure League, Run 5e. There's
Magic games, there's minis games. I ran my stock car racing game, and it was the most entertaining ever. Out of 8 starters, 5 DNFs, and one that couldn't get his motor started at the end of the race. So
a good family con too.
Excellent.
Outside of the Halloween things, I set my own record for players at the table. I had an 8-year-old at my table there with her mother, and it was awesome.
I had a young lady with her dad, and I don't think she could have been more than maybe 9 or 10. I'm not very good at judging anymore, and she was a lot of fun. It was. We had a lot of laughs. That seems to me, Gamehole. You come away from Gamehole with a lot of. I have every time a lot of. We laughed a lot. We had a great time. Made new friends.
Yeah, and
and he made a big score.
I got this, which is only special to me because when I was 18 years old, I stared at this on the shelf and could never afford it. The first version we got our hands on was the big flat board game box version. Unfortunately, I missed Tom Wom. I mean, I saw him at the con, but I didn't get this in time for an autograph. But so that means I'm dragging it to Gary.
Yeah, and I'll take care of that. I'll make sure you and Tom hook up. And it means a lot to him, but it also means a hell of a lot to me because I published it first. And that's another whole story about Snitz and Snitz Revenge and the awful green things from outer space. We were thumbing our nose at some of the other companies in the business, showing them that we could do it too and do it just as well, if not better. Anyway, that was a long time ago.
Good job, Alex, and the whole team. And I just keep saying Alex because Alex is the head guy and I know him. But every interaction I personally had with a staff member was fantastic.
I can't disagree. It was extremely well run, well organized. Anytime I had a question, I had an answer within minutes. They were very accommodating, and I won a free game. Yay!
So I want to go on record as saying Alex Kamer is the Tom Tullis of running game conventions.
Oh, okay. We know where that's going. Speaking of Tom Tullis, you're involved with Tom Tullis in the midst of your Kickstarter because you guys and somebody else are tell us about it.
Oh, well, first let me give you a present I brought you.
Oh, okay.
Since you don't have a 3D printer.
No, it's one toy I don't think I'll ever get.
3D print of the telepathic rat.
Oh my, how nice.
That's not going to work so great, but yeah.
Well, thank you.
To go with your Cyberlich mini I gave you the other week.
Yeah, I have the Cyberlich too.
That's a stretch goal in my current Kickstarter. I'm so lousy at this in person. I think I forgot to mention it at 2 of my games. I'm running a Kickstarter called Fight This Mutant. It's a sequel book to the prior Kickstarter, Check This Artifact. It's got, 9 or 10 days going now. And that little telepathic rat mini and a Cyberlich mini that I sculpted, the telepathic rat was 90% Tom and a little of me, which was high honor in itself. Tom let me mess with one of his mini sculpts, and the stretch goals have already blown by for a bunch of science fiction Fat Dragon Games terrain. That's all free. The terrain is free now. We're trying to get to the telepathic rat and the Cyberlich.
They're doing well, and I've seen it. Well, I edited it. It's some really good stuff. I mean, in fact, I've been so inspired by this that one of the old adventures I wrote a long time ago, I'm going to reskin. It's going to stay 1E, and then Jared will also do a parallel 5E skin, and I'm going to skin it for post-apocalyptic, since I learned how to say that frequently. I'm going to reskin it to be able to play it also in that way, because I've just had so much fun editing all his his after the bad stuff happens stuff that I've decided I'm going to skin one and do it the same way. I just hope to do it as well.
Who knew the post-apocalyptic genre was going to come back so strong all of a sudden? I mean, when we were kids, sooner or later, nuclear weapons were going to destroy us. Now it's social media.
Yeah, well, I don't know. Walking Dead had something to do with that. I think they fed because I always thought zombies were more of after a tragedy thing than a comet flying over and turning everybody into zombies.
I mean, zombies is post-apocalyptic 101, except maybe in the specific context of D&D.
Okay. Yeah. Well, yeah, of course. Everything has a niche in D&D. And we're going to talk about a couple of those later when I answer some of the questions from the last one.
Have we sung Gamehole's praises enough, or you got emails?
No, I'm trying to think of this. Well, if you go to Gamehole and you don't go to the little blue and white wagon amongst the food wagons out in front of the convention center and have one of their Powerball sliders, which is a giant Italian meatball stuffed with cheese on a brioche slider bun, you haven't had the full Gamehole experience, in my opinion.
You know me, I didn't get to those because I found the food truck with pressed Cubans, and I hadn't had those since I lived in Florida.
Oh,
so I lived on pressed Cuban sandwiches.
I didn't get that far. I got to the meatball truck and never made it past it. Yeah, well, I could think of anything else except you ought to start making your reservations now because
Shirley,
you
want to show off
yes,
John Kovac I almost said Catapleus Displacer cat,
Displacer Beast,
which is pretty adorable. And
this follows in their tradition.
How many great grandchildren did you have to get one of these?
I had to buy 6 of them.
Six of these Tim had to get.
Yeah, I have a whole herd of Displacer Beasts. Do not adventure in my place because you will be attacked by hordes of Displacer Beasts. But the thing about, they've done plushies, and the only time I didn't give my grandkids, and I should have them because I had fewer, I didn't give them the Mimic because it was a box and it looked like it would not stand up to 2-year-old hands. But all the ones since have had all these wonderful little handles, even the littlest ones. Got something to drag it around on the floor on, as I've seen. So, way to go, guys! Keep up the good work on the plushies. I guess we beat Gamehole to death. All right, we're going to talk about some of these questions. I'm glad Jim's here tonight because some of these I'd like his input on too. And so a couple of these are going to be very disappointing for the writers. What was the biggest body of work you created or worked on for TSR? Well, that depends on how you define it. The first 36 Dragon magazines, or single biggest project. I shepherded with Gary what became basic and advanced, and I just basically helped him organize it. And we argued, where should this go? Where should that go? How strong should it be? And it was great fun. But that was the last huge project because I had so many other things going on in the periodicals division. What are you most proud of in all of your RPG writings? Well, that might surprise you. I was forced to write a short story once to go in an anthology.
Dude, that's my favorite piece of your writing is that short story.
And I had to write a short story. I'd never written a short story in my life. Had to be fantasy or science fiction. So I wrote a story. I'm very proud of that story because I've gotten a ton of compliments by people that aren't my friend.
Well,
and said that they really liked it and they thought it was great. And why didn't I write more? In terms of games or adventures,
he won't write more because he hates writing fiction, even though he's great at it. That's why he won't write more.
Probably you haven't seen the one I'm the proudest of yet. My mega opus is something called Onto the Devil's Skillet. And I wrote it back in, 13, 11, somewhere back in there. And I overwrote the hell out of it. I was writing it for an adventure for a convention. And I wrote essentially 4 modules in a mega campaign. So that's going to be all redone, buffed up, touched up. And I'll be very proud of that because there's going to be nights and nights of, I'm talking game nights of getting from one place to another to experience all the stuff that I created back then. I almost said we because sometimes I felt like I had somebody sitting on my shoulder feeding weird ideas into my head. Let's see. Next,
is that the part of your campaign out in the desert?
Yes,
all kept dying in.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. You've been there a couple times. Yes. There's a couple of really good adventures out there. Major mega adventures. Rephrase. What work would you want to share with your grandchildren the most? I'd like that story to be read to them. All right. When they're old enough, I'd like them. I want to be the one to read them the story, and then after it's all over, tell them, "Yeah, I wrote that." And they see it in a book, that's what I want to do. I have 6 great grands, 5 by blood, 1 by adoption, informal adoption, half brother to one by blood. And I'd like to someday sit down and read them stories, but they range in age from 5 to 1. So it's going to be a while before most of them will sit down. But that's what I'd like to do.
5 to 3 months.
Yeah, 5 to 3 months. Yes. Oh, God, I can't forget.
He's new.
He was such a surprise. We still sometimes don't remember him. But he's the one on my Facebook page with the amazing eyes. And that picture was taken at 3 weeks. Tell me that's not an old soul. Also, is there collection, compilation of your work or an accessible archive? Well, yes and no. There's one in work. I had a 126-page thread on dragonsfoot.org. And my friend Phil has got about half of that indexed. And we might let the first half go out, just bits and pieces of it, teaser. And when it's all done, I'm just going to make it available to, hey, you want to know what I said about this or that, here's where to find it. The wit and wisdom. And then when that's all done, I'll probably write a book. And because it's not fiction, I could probably do it better. Let's see. Thank you. Okay. Thank you.
Tell you got your eyes fixed, because I can't read that from here.
Oh yeah, I'm 3 years now with new. I had bad those cloudy things in my eyes. Yeah, and I got new eyes. I'm 20/20 again. I just had them checked. But it's 14 point. Let's be honest, and it has to be out here. Okay. All right. Now I talked about in a conversation about alignments and stuff, and at the table in the campaign, I made some point to the effect of we work under an overarching concept of right and wrong as formed by the Judeo-Christian ethic, and now as we become more integrated, I said let's change that to the people of the book, all three of the great faiths that share the books of the Old Testament. Well, I think I got a divinity student here who says the problem with replacing Judeo-Christian with the people of the book is that when Islam is drastically different interpretation of the Old Testament stories. Okay, let's look at that. Stories. They're all stories. They're all stories. I believe that, and your religion may be different, but they're all stories, and all stories are open to interpretation. But the fundamental principle of all three of the people of the book is love your neighbor, don't make war, help him if he needs it.
See, that's where I'm at. Carl Jung is my hero, and he did his whole theory of psychology based on comparative religions, and when he looked at it, all the religions were 95% the same. And
so,
don't kill somebody for no good reason. Treat people like you want to be treated.
And every religion has crackpots, okay, or zealots or extremists. Look at those idiots from that Westboro Baptist Church that used to picket outside of dead soldiers' funerals, saying that God killed them because he hates fags. I mean, I find that every bit as morally repugnant as somebody trying to go around and blow something up. So the basic principle of all three of the people of the book is peace. Not war, peace. Help each other, love each other. Now,
help me out. What does this have to do with gaming?
Well, they were trying to figure out, how do you deal with morality of alignments when you get into gray areas of alignments? What's good, what's not, what's just? Do you need alignments? And I think part of my response was not necessarily do you have to declare an alignment. Oftentimes I find that campaigns tend to pick up a vibe, and they, chaotic neutral. If there's a lot of guys that want to steal things in there, but they tend to pick up a vibe that isn't evil, that isn't all about killing things just to kill things, etc., or to enslave people and make them work for you, and you make your character rich or something like that. And it's also what keeps us from stabbing each other in the group, in the party, when we get mad at each other.
I mean, D&D needs it because it was built on it. It can be 3-point or 5-point or 9-point or however many points. Just like you can't play Star Wars without knowing whether you're on the light side or the dark side. You can't play a Star Wars role-playing game. Other games, it doesn't matter at all.
Yep, you got to make a commitment. So anyway, now the next one, me, mostly my fault. Wondering if the Betty Two Spells contest had concluded, because this gentleman's been sick and he's not been able. He's been 3 months laid up and out of touch. Well, I blew that. The file that had most of the content, most of the entries got lost. We talked about it and decided the guy that sent in the spell about going back in time and interrupting the parents of the person he wanted to rub out, interrupting them having sex just before conception and then killing them so that his victim never existed. I thought that was wonderful.
That wasn't the actual answer. That was maybe much better.
Yeah. Well, it was something like that. It was do this spell, do that spell. And anyway, I blew that, and I'm sorry. And I'll think up another one because I still got all those wonderful prizes and more. So we'll think up some other.
Well, in fairness, your whole computer crashed and you lost most of your hard drive.
Yeah, I did, and it's happened. Yeah. So anyway, my bad. I'm sorry. I'm glad to see I'm glad to hear you're feeling better. We talked about who keeps the player sheets, and
I saw that episode.
And he said, we kept everything campaign related in a series of folders that he kept. Okay. I modify a little bit what I said over the last 2 times that I said it. There are certain circumstances where I can certainly see that, especially a bunch of high schoolers playing. You don't know who's going to be there for which game or whatever. Somebody's responsible for the records. Perfectly understandable because we often only had one set of books in the group. So make sure you bring your books, Jim. He's the only one that had rule books. So I can understand that, making sure that the stuff's there. But by the same token, what I said, come on, if you don't care enough to bring your stuff to the game, are you really that motivated to play? At the very least, I'd be asking the guy who's got the folder, you got my stuff? And if he did, well, then, okay, I'm going to play.
Why is this some issue I don't know about?
Well, it seemed to me that this
somebody have a bad experience.
Well, it seemed to me that this conversation, how they spring up like fungi after the rain, sprung up on Facebook about who keeps the players' cards. And was it a trust issue? And it seemed to me that a lot of people were saying they didn't trust their players. And I said, on the other hand, I had to be reminded after 3 or 4 adventures. Oh, let's total up. That I never thought of my players fudging.
No, I got you. It's just
it was
a social media hypotheticals argument.
Yeah, and
turned into a knife fight.
And I thought it struck at the one of the basic issues that when you sit down with a group of players night after night after night, there's a certain level of trust there.
Well, right. When we were teenagers, we all, our player book, our dice bag, our character sheets, we packed them around and nobody cared. When the entirety of playtesting Mutant Crawl Classics, I gathered the sheets up because it was a more modern, casual thing where people are just showing up. And like you said, we didn't know who could be at each session. It was just easier. There was no trust.
Sure,
issues.
you were playtesting a product. When you guys were my playtesters for some of my adventures, you guys kept your stuff because I didn't care.
Hung onto that sheet
because that was playtesting. That was a whole different ballgame.
But if anybody had asked me, Marcos wants to keep his character sheet. Fine, just remember to bring it back. There was no zero. I mean, trust me. Back in the day when my brother was my DM, my younger brother was my DM, and we were both teenagers. There were some things that were sacrosanct. He did not. I'd try and pull all kinds of bullshit, but he knew I wasn't going to sneak XPs in.
That's it. And I made the comment that, somebody shows up with his whiz-bang sword. Oh, wait a minute. Where'd that come from? I'm going to forget what they have and what they found. No, it's not going to happen. So it was just kind of a trust thing. And that's what I was addressing. I was hoping it was not because you didn't trust your players.
Well, the discussion...
Because you could always audit them if you're that anal about it.
I mean, the discussion or debate or argument or whatever version it is as old as time. I mean, 40 years now of people trying to write rules that could fix bad DMs or terrible players. And you can't really do that. You trust your group and if your DM's good or not, if you trust them.
Okay, here's an ad-lib topic. You just brought it up. Fixing games. Another thing I saw on one of the gaming forums on Facebook. How do you fix a broken game? And I've not gotten a response yet to my return question, define broke.
Like a broken rule set or a group that doesn't work?
Exactly. And if it's a broken rule set, well, you just house rule it and smooth it all over. And that's not the big thing. If it's a broken group, Well, you're far more qualified than I am to speak on that because of your background.
Well, I mean, first of all, everybody house rules, but not everybody knows they can, or that they are house ruling when they're house ruling. Because everybody, a vast majority, 99.9% of us have looked at a bunch of rules like, I don't like that initiative order. We're going to do it the way we always did it, or something like that, some version of that. I do appreciate and take seriously and don't make fun of players that are new enough to the hobby or underexposed to the hobby, to which it's a very earnest question. In fact, on the Mutant Crawl Classics Facebook page today, some guy just got the book, just ran his first game, and his question was, it says in the rules that before combat, surprise is determined by the GM. Now, I know what that means, you know what that means, but this guy didn't, and I am the last guy on earth that's going to like, don't you know any better? Because first of all, he bought my game, and second of all,
yeah, you don't piss off guys about your stuff.
You can tell it's an earnest request, and
Okay, that's fine. Another one on Facebook, just last 36 hours. Gary wrote famously that they were arguing what Gary meant when he basically was saying that everybody is free to house rule their own game. And they were like demented English teachers. They were parsing the sentence and putting a whole different meaning on it that I never saw, which happened to me about half the time in high school English. I never saw that shit in the story. I wasn't good on picking up that stuff. But they were taking it the whole way, saying that you don't need rules at all. And what Gary had said was the biggest secret is that we don't want the GMs to know that they don't need the rules. Right. We always wrote in every book that I had a hand in, and in books afterwards, these are guidelines. Now we have these RAW people, rules as written. And you have the old school who's just as happy as clams playing along as we've always played. But now the new people are deriding that because you don't play the rules as written. No, we don't. Never have. That was always the intent. Are we better or worse? Nah, that's the way we play. That's the way we roll. We're old school and unashamed.
I'll make an admission. I wandered around this planet for decades, saying out loud, I liked first edition AD&D because it was rules light. And no, that Dungeon Master's Guide is not rules light, but I never really read it or used most of it because I Dungeon Mastered like Lonnie Barnett Dungeon Mastered for us.
Yeah, and he did it right out of the 3 little books. That's how Lonnie learned it.
Well, I mean, a transformed version of that, sure.
Yeah, he had the little books, and then did he go straight in the hardbacks?
It was.
Did he have the little white box? Because I'm sure he didn't have a brown box. They were gone by then.
It was just a mismatched pile of those little pamphlets. And
and
the AD&D books were just coming out when I started.
And that was perfectly within the zeitgeist of the rules. Pick and choose what you like, and this is the way it works.
Tons of stuff. Initiative order. All this, how do spells work? When do you get your spells back? Was just stuff Lonnie showed us through DMing a game, and I just imitated him. And, 20 years later, I actually read the Dungeon Master's Guide back to back and go, holy crap, we didn't do any of that.
Yeah, I know that feeling. I'm going to brag on myself just a little. I don't do this often.
Let's go through your questions because you and I are a long talk.
That is of the questions.
That was all of them?
Yeah. It's been a long time since I did a show. But during this last show, every once in a while when I get rolling on here, rambling, I managed to string together some words that when somebody throws them back at me, surprised me. So I'm kind of proud of this one. And somebody else that heard it quoted it out, and then they told me about it. What I was talking about is design. You can't just go way out there and try to say that everybody's an amoeba living in a salty ocean mix. You have to have some touch with reality to be able to go beyond. And I was just making gestures. And I said that the underpinnings of logic help us make our way down that tunnel of fantasy. And I think if you want to be a designer, You got to think that way. You can't go so far. You can't write a game about being a gaseous entity floating in space.
Well, now that you put that dare out there, somebody's going to.
Well, they're going to try, but you won't do one that'll sell, because you have to, no matter how absurd it is, you have to have something that you can say, okay, I'm this in that game. Whether you're playing a bear or a rail baron, okay, you have to have something. And if it's fantasy, it can't be so weird that you can't figure out what it is the DM's explaining to you. He's got to use terms. He's got to use analogies and metaphors that have an underpinning in logic. He's got to avoid metagaming unless he's going for a laugh. Like I did in one of my...
This is my favorite word in the English language. I've told you. Do you remember?
You've told me many words you're fond of.
No. This is my absolute favorite word in the English language, because Richard Donner had a giant sign with this word on it all during the production of the first Superman movie, verisimilitude.
Yes.
Something demonstrably true
yes.
of its own merits.
Yes. That it has to seem, even by the tiniest, it has to seem like it could be true. Babylon 5, Star Trek. Even that crappy thing with the Cylons. Battlestar, what was that? Galactica with the Cylons and Lorne Green.
Oh, the old Battlestar Galactica.
Yeah. They had the verisimilitude of reality because they had a ship that had walls and it had panels and it had seats. They weren't floating in a gelatinous goo in suspended animation getting to the next planet. Who to watch that?
And they're moving parts. This is the mark of an excellent GM. If your GM, inevitably you'll want to do something in a game that there aren't rules for, or nobody knows the rules, and a GM will on the fly invent a rule. Okay, we're going to do it this way. And the superior GM either mentally notes that or writes it down so that it works that same way every next time you try it.
Yeah, you have to do that. Absolutely.
That's a good campaign.
If A plus B equals C the first time, it's always got to be A plus B is always got to equal C. Very, very crude example.
That's how, as the older brother playing in my younger brother's campaign, I drove him constantly insane because I wouldn't remember, okay, it worked this way. And then I would try and jot the rule. Yeah.
Well,
of course I did it.
And now, here's what we did. When we couldn't make something work that way, with something we did research and we invented a new spell. And they did very specific things. And we went by the old rules of how much gold it would cost and how many weeks you would have to study. And I had guys in my campaign that were more than willing. And of course, a lot of it happened over quarter breaks and holiday breaks, because that was the weeks they needed of game days. And so I had a guy.
You got to spend all that gold on something besides hookers and blow.
Well, and you'd have loved one guy he had 8 different variations on a fireball. It was like a flying match head that light the campfire to a really impressive oily rolling thing that burned everything in its path and still went a long ways.
That sounds like Hackmaster to me. That's great.
Well, this is back in 74, 75, and we were still testing the parameters of the rules and how much we could get away with. And that's why some of those rules were later tamped down about researching spells. I think they kind of faded away into nothing.
Well, anyway, that's what I heard when you said the thing about, there needs to be a logical underpinning.
Yes. Verisimilitude. Yes. Great word. Great word. I bitched a spell without a spell check.
Well, as a younger player, I did it too, but the thing people will get hung up on is arguing real world physics in a fantasy setting where I can shoot a lightning bolt out my finger.
Yeah. Well, well, see, but that's the thing in sci-fi settings, you can justify all that stuff because you got a thing running down your arm and your power glove, and it shoots naphtha out there and it ignites it. I got to think that writing for sci-fi has got to be hellishly wonderful for making weapons for the players.
Well, I mean, Mutant Call Classics, the stuff I write is more science fantasy because it's in that gamma world. The media equivalent would be Star Wars. But if it has to work, it has verisimilitude, but it doesn't necessarily adhere to real world science. Whereas Traveler, Gamehole Con, I got to have dinner with Mark Miller.
Yes, we did.
Talk to him.
Yes. Oh, geez, Mark. Sorry.
How cool was that?
Yeah, it was. Mark and I have never spent that much time talking to each other, and the whole time we've known each other in the industry, because we've just never been at the same booth, never been at the same thing.
You're welcome.
It was amazing. He came up the next day and told me how much he'd enjoyed it. I had to say ditto. I had too. And then I got to meet his wife the next day.
But Traveler is like The Expanse. The Expanse that's on TV now, I adore, because that's hard science fiction.
And Traveler was hard science fiction.
And honestly, whether it's fiction or these games, fantasy is harder because you don't go into that with real world physics you learned in college. You gotta invent the rules or steal them, and then keep them consistent.
Well, yeah, I mean, you got to do stuff like make up what they got to go find to make some kind of spell, and so you just go as far afield as you can and pull stuff out of your bag of tricks, and all of a sudden you got 2 little side quests.
Oh, I just lied. I said I used to do something when I was a kid, and I just did it to Matt Finch last year. Once I figured out how lightning bolts ricocheted in Matt Finch's campaign, it was enfilade every time I could line it up.
We're gonna do something I've never done before.
We go too long?
I just got a question in. Let's see. Oh, no. What is this?
What, you just...
No.
Like your last one got a comment while we were broadcasting?
Yeah, well. Oh, well, we're not going to answer that. That's for next week. I'm sorry to do that to you. I thought I don't know this live streaming stuff, and I have no idea. So I'm still learning. Then after the next one, number 100, I think is going to have a whole new different format. We're going to use the same music, but my video guy Benjamin has been fooling around with ideas, and I said, fine, have a good time. And so we'll see what that looks like next time.
Benjamin, please do a better intro than the one Zach Glazer and I put together. Somebody can surely do better than that one. Well,
I liked the Grating Rocks at the time, but now with music, they do kind of clash.
I didn't say it was bad. I just said, please do better.
Well, I mean, he did it, so it's okay. He's not ranking on anybody. Let's see.
Zach a little bit, but that's okay.
Okay, your quick Kickstarter, 8 more days?
I'd have to pull up on my phone and
Fight This Mutant.
Yeah. It's got 9 or 10 days. This will come out tomorrow.
And he even gave me a name check. Whoa! Hey! I love it. In one of his Kickstarter things. Something I'd like to think, an evil trick I taught him.
Well, here's why I'm not going to bang on you for being so in love with something you wrote that you quoted yourself back, because
I didn't write it. I said it.
I know.
I said it. That was what amazing.
But I'm a writer too, so I know what it is. You get that perfect sentence, and you're like, okay. So the dedication to my editor in Fight This Mutant is thanks to Tim Kask for being a human thesaurus and vetted arbiter of pure evil.
And I'm
quite proud of that.
Yes, and I'm very gratified for that dedication. And that being the case, I have run out of things to say. You got anything you want to talk about? Any weird crap going on in hobby right now? Anything we forgot to talk about going on at Gamehole? Any new trends?
I
found 3 games.
Yes.
All right.
Kids at home, if you think it's a good idea to launch Kickstarter 2 days before a game convention that's right after you've pulled 2 60-hour weeks and you're 59 years old, it's a terrible idea. Never do that, because I'm wore out.
I found 3 board games that look promising, and I'll follow up on them. Well, 2 boards, and one's actually a card and dice game. Card and dice game is called Art of War. It's by Rainer Knizia, the immensely talented European designer. And I found one that's all about weaving cloth for the guild and decorating the cathedral and all that. And it looks like real interesting. My guys are into Euro games. But then I found what looks to be a hidden gem. It's called Scoville. You plant peppers, and then you crossbreed them, and the guy that gets the hottest pepper with the most money at the end of the game wins. It looks like it's just the kind of thing that you can't really screw the other guys with. but you can sure have fun.
So on the Scoville scale of 1 to 100,000 hotness.
Well, I on my initial review, I give it a 50,000. It just looks like the system looks impeccable.
You guys going to play it on Wednesday?
Yes, we are. And I'll give you a full report after we play it. That's the next one on the list for this coming Wednesday. The 9th. No, what is it today? Today's the 11th.
Oh, you know what we left out at Gamehole Con was the debut of the guy who runs Gamehole Con. Alex Kamer wrote a big hardback.
Oh yeah, really good
D&D book for 5th edition and Swords and Wizardry called The Sea King's Malice. Everything you ever wanted to put in a campaign that happens under or ocean adjacent.
Yes, anything on or below the water. This has got it.
It debuted at Gamehole Con. It's for sale right now, and Alex wrote a great book.
Yeah, it is. It's a beauty, and it's a nice hardback product too, which you don't always see every now. And I guess we've run out of drivel, so Dodata Govi.
See you.
Oh, hello. I'm still figuring out when this thing starts. Welcome to my cellar.
He's the curmudgeon who wrote about the dungeons. Now he's the feller, live from the cellar. Talks about D&D and old school RPGs. Still quite a